Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wells Fargo Beyond College webinar series. I would like to introduce Dewey Norwood of Wells Fargo's External Engagement.
Yakima, thank you so much, and so appreciative of your great leadership and all of the wonderful work that the TMCF team is doing to sponsor this year's Beyond College webinar series. So Yakima, thanks for getting us started in great voice and getting us into our great content here for today. Hey, as we jump in, team, we're going to give you our intro slide right at the top, and you're going to see our topic today is all about success strategies for managing student debt. We have exceptional leaders from across our firm that are going to be sharing perspective with you all and giving you steps that you need to be thinking about to aggressively address any student debt that you may have. I want to begin by giving a huge shout out to all the graduates out there. Yay, graduates. We have so many graduates that I know are joining us as a part of today's discussion. So congratulations to those that have moved the tassel from one side to the other and have earned those college degrees. We're so proud of you, and congratulations also to our high schoolers that are pending graduation, and obviously to our college students that have finished strong. Hey, as we jump in, I think there's a slide here that's got my contact information on it. We've got the quick QR code here. You can scan this. This will actually take you over to LinkedIn, and you can make the connection. Thank you, students, for reaching out and keeping the conversations going there. I would encourage you in advance to get connected in with all of the Thurgood Marshall TMCF team, and then also get connected in with all of our Wells Fargo partners as well. Hey, as we continue, want to jump right over, just spotlight a little bit of the work that our firm is doing. Just some pieces that we'll highlight here from our recent earnings announcement. 1 in 3 households, team, across the firm, or excuse me, across the globe is actually building a relationship in some way, shape, or form with our institution. That translates to $1.9 trillion in assets under management. Again, 1 in 3 households there that we have the honor and the privilege to be able to serve through our diverse offerings of products and resources. Of course, you see all of the lines of business that are listed there. You also see our recent recognition in Forbes as being recognized as one of America's largest corporations and engagement in those kinds of areas. Would encourage everyone, make sure you're checking out Wells Fargo Stories, which is a great channel where we spotlight work that's happening across our institution. And we're actually going to spotlight something that I think will be of great interest to you here in just a moment. So a little bit there about Wells Fargo. As we continue on, we always like to spotlight something that's in the news, right? This is 2 webinars in a row that we've spotlighted our amazing HBCU Legends collection. QR code is there. Would encourage everyone to jump over and scan that to access it. That's actually going to take you out to a news story that spotlights these amazing cards. And I think that we've got another slide here that actually gives you the breakout folder. Look at those amazing cards in there. I'd be interested, scholars, utilize the chat here. How many of you all have gained one of these cards already? Or do you see one on the screen that you especially like? And if so, go ahead and drop a comment into the chat. We're excited that we've got Bowie State in the mix, Johnson C. Smith, Elizabeth City State, my wife's alma mater, in the mix there. We've got the Lincoln Lions, we've got the Livingstone Blue Bears, of course, St. Aug's, Shaw, Virginia State, Virginia Union, Winston-Salem State University, Clark Atlanta, the A, representing y'all down there in the AUC space. Of course, we've got our friends at the CIAA. We've got our friends, of course, at the Thurgood Marshall College Fund and our partners at UNCF as well. And I see some folks dropping into the chat. What I will tell you is we are continuing to build more and more of these schools in the days ahead. So keep letting us know about your colleges and universities, and we'll continue to get as many connected in as we have the ability to do so. Next slide, I think, just gives you a quick link over to our card design studio. And again, for any existing Wells Fargo customers, boom, scan this link. It takes you to the studio, and then in turn, you can kind of customize your banking experience with any of our HBCU Legends collection cards. We're pretty excited about this. All right, we're going to keep things moving here because we've got a lot of really good content. Final item that I'll spend just a moment talking about, and then we're going to hear some comments from our friends over at TMCF. Always helpful to know the kind of organization that you're working with. And I want you to know that the dollars that our firm has made from a strategic investment perspective are significant. Over $98 million now of financial support that our institution has provided in support of higher education programming. That number is just over $30 million of support in the last 10 years, specifically for historically Black colleges and universities. So it could be a campus that's near you, or the work or the dollars, better yet, that we're providing through TMCF and also through UNCF. So some significant strategic investments that have been made there. And of course, dollars to help students stay on path and stay on their journey relative to their higher education experiences. So a little bit about Wells Fargo. And with that said, we're going to bring on a trusted partner in Jackie and Miss Jackie Powers from the TMCF team. So Jackie, thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation. I know you want to spend a couple of minutes talking through some of the great work that's happening within TMCF. And I think you're also going to sing a song, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just double checking on that for today. Did I get that right, or am I reading my script?
Well, maybe I'll spare you. I don't want you to hear the cat's meow, but
we love it. Team, this is Jackie Powers. Jackie, take it away.
Thanks so much, Dewey. So yes, at the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, we are excited to celebrate 35 years of supporting students at HBCUs and PBIs. And we're founded in 1987, but we continue the momentum that we started with. Our partnerships with organizations such as Wells Fargo have allowed us to provide over $300 million in support of education, workforce development programs, and ultimately preparing you all, the next generation, that's supporting nearly 300,000 students. Our metrics are tangible and they are very much real. About 80 to 90% of our scholars that participate in our programs graduate. And when we compare that to some of the statistics with the national averages, we are seeing top tier results in how we prepare our students. In our upcoming year, we are poised to manage over 100 different scholarship programs. Many of those include opportunities from Wells Fargo, and we're so grateful for the support. And in our next slide, you'll see what our mission is. We are all about supporting student success. We promote educational excellence, and again, preparing the next generation. So excited to be here. So excited and grateful to you, Dewey, and the good folks at Wells Fargo for the partnership. So I'll hand it back over to you.
Jackie, thanks a million. And please know we are excited about our partnership, strategic alignment with TMCF from a senior leader perspective, folks like Rob Bingle that are serving on the board, and also for our volunteers that are engaging. So we're excited. We've got a lot more work to do here. Hey, we've touched on the about Wells Fargo. Let's touch on these numbers. You can't be on a call with a banker without talking about some numbers. And so, hey, great numbers for us, team. Just under 100. We almost got to 100. I bet we probably have some folks that sneak in late to get involved with us relative to the numbers. You know, we got to shout out the top universities. We've got Georgia Tech in the mix here today. I think running through the tape right there as our top referral source. We've got the University of Houston also in the mix with us here today. We've got the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, my alma mater, there in the mix. So 49ers, Charlotte strong, and also the University of North Carolina at Greensboro today. We also had a number of schools that kind of came in with a couple there, but those are our top four. And you guys also know, we also love to shout out some of the high schools that get connected in with us as well. And so we've got some great high schools that are joining us. And I think I'll take a moment at the end of the call to maybe spotlight one or two of those high schools that are joining us here for today as well. Don't forget, Q&A feature is open for business. You have the ability to submit questions to us real time as a part of today's presentation. Please remember, scholars and participants, when you submit those questions to us, you are submitting those to us confidentially. We're not going to read your name out on the broadcast, but I promise you, if you have a question, there's going to be something that's top of mind for someone else that's either listening right now or that's enjoying the playback of this session. So please ask those questions, do so in confidence. You can also utilize the chat feature to be able to plug those items in there directly. From a programming perspective, we're going to talk about getting prepared financially for your college journey, the things that you and your family need to be thinking about, what to expect. Of course, we're going to talk about student loan repayment and items in those kinds of areas. How does refinancing come into play? Is consolidation something you could be considering? Loan forgiveness, how does that play in? But we also want you to leave this call with lots of resources that are going to be very, very beneficial to you. At the end of the call, we'll give some reminders around playback. Of course, all of these are available on demand after they are recorded on the great TMCF YouTube channel. And of course, the feedback and the survey link that we always share with you. We want you to give us feedback to tell us the things that you enjoyed. Last but not least, get social with us. Use that hashtag WFC Beyond College and also the TMCF hashtag to stay connected with us and get social with us. If you get something that's really good today, share it with others so they can benefit from it as well. Hey, we're going to jump to our presenters, but I also want to do just one more point of privilege piece here, team, and just remind everyone that today's webinar is being recorded. So if you choose not to participate in a recorded webinar, now is a great time for you to politely disconnect. And at the same time, over about the next 7 to 10 business days, we will be posting on the TMCF YouTube channel the playback for this presentation. To those that are watching the playback, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for sharing this information with others that may benefit from it. If you have any questions about any of the items that we've touched on here during this presentation, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we will be happy to answer any questions you may have. All right, we've gotten the intro done. It's now time to pivot to the real stars, right? You know, you had Yakima there kicking it off. You had Jackie doing her thing. You had this guy in the middle, Norwood, who, you know, don't worry about him. Let's get to back to the real stars of today's broadcast, and two trusted partners of ours, and you'll see their information on the next slide. Casey Galindo, who is joining us today from San Antonio, Texas. The stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart. That's all I can say. I'll let y'all finish it. So joining us from Texas, and Sylvia Jones, just an amazing partner of ours, joining us from Macon, Georgia today. These leaders boast, team, 50+ years of experience and 50 years of solving problems and real life examples of things that they've been able to do to help students along their academic journey to graduate with the least amount of student debt possible and then to transition into their career pathway. So you'll see their information here on the screen. Same rules, you can scan those QR codes. It'll take you right over to their profiles to make those connections. So Casey, Sylvia, on behalf of our external engagement team, I want to thank you all so much for being a part of today's meeting. You've done this for years and years and years with us. And so we're excited about our content for today. Casey, I think we're going to start with you. I won't make you sing anything, but we'll hand the reins over to you for the discussion, and we'll be back for some Q&A with the team from TMCF a little bit later on in the broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Casey Galindo, take it away.
Thanks, Dewey. And I don't think anybody wants me to hear, or anybody wants to hear me finish that song. I thought about it.
But everybody knows that song. Right?
I would call it audience participation, if that was an option.
I love it. I love it.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much, Dewey and team, for inviting us to come back. It is always a pleasure to do this session. As Dewey mentioned, my name is Casey Galindo, and I am actually joining all of you today from San Antonio, Texas. So very excited to be here and really just to be able to provide some information and answer any questions that you all might have. I will let you know I had student loans. So I've been there, done that, and been in your shoes. So please feel free to ask any questions that may come up. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to my colleagues and one of my best friends at work, Miss Sylvia Jones. Sylvia.
Well, thank you, Casey, and good afternoon, everyone. We really appreciate you guys being here with us today. We're excited to share information with you all about paying student loans. And, when you think about paying student loans, it's one of those things that may not be very exciting, but hopefully we will share some information with you today that will put you on a better path and in a good situation. Again, my name is Sylvia Jones. I'm based in Macon, Georgia, and really, really excited to be here with you. Fun fact about me is that I actually am a former financial aid director. So while you might not think it is fun, it's a fun fact for a financial person. So been there, know where you are, understand all of the things that you guys are going through, and just excited to be with you today. And so on our agenda today, we're going to be discussing several things. We're going to start out with preparing yourself financially. So what do you need to know and to put in place before you start paying those student loans? What to expect once you're in student loan repayment. Also, we're going to talk about student loan repayment and postponement, as well as student loan refinancing and consolidation. What does that even mean? And how do I consolidate? And should I consolidate? And finally, we're going to provide you with some valuable resources that we think you're going to find helpful and will just, like I said, put you on a better path so that you're ready to start paying your student loans when that time happens. Next slide. So first, when you think about preparing yourself financially for student loan repayment, one of the things that we really think that's important for you to do is really, you need to start setting goals. And when you think about setting goals, it's important to set financial goals, and it's also important to have a plan in place. And oftentimes, we get a lot of questions around, how can I pay my loans off faster? How can I prioritize all of those things that come at you? I mean, I remember thinking, okay, they want us to save, they want us to invest, they want us to pay the student loans off. I have, bills I need to pay, expenses. Well, what we recommend is that you start out by creating a budget. So first you set your goals and then you create a budget. And when you think about that, you really need to know what money do you have coming in, what money is going out. So what are some of those expenses that you have? And then once you know what those expenses are, then factor in that student loan repayment, right? Factor in what you're going to be paying monthly on your student loan. So put that in your budget. And the good thing about this, you want to do that prior to even getting any information about your student loan repayment, what that's going to be. So set that budget up. Put that student loan repayment in your budget to see, where does that all fit and can you do it? And then you want to make sure that you're leveraging all of the resources and tools that the financial institution that you have, what they have to offer. And we're going to also provide you guys with some additional resources later, but you want to make sure that you create that budget. And then also, once you create the budget, you always have that opportunity to make some adjustments, right? Let's say you get that big raise down the road, maybe you can pay more towards that student loan debt so that you do pay it off faster. And there's a lot of talk around different ways to postpone that. Casey's going to talk about that a little bit later, but you really want to start out setting yourself up, creating that budget and starting yourself out on the right track. So next slide. And one of the things that I'll mention too is a good tip that I didn't mention is that you really want to, one of the great things is you want to make sure that you set things up, especially your student loan payment, set it up to put it on auto payment. That way you don't have to worry about it as far as, am I going to miss it? When does it start? So make sure that you set up that ACH. And then once you're in repayment, let's talk about some of those things, the basics things that you need to expect before you go into repayment. And so the next slide, we're going to talk about the different types of student loans. And so you can see here that there's several different types of student loans that you may have. And one of the biggest really is the federal direct student loans. So if you guys think about it, on your student award letter or on your offer, you'll see loans like subsidized and unsubsidized. Those are federal loans that are funded by the government. In addition to that, you as a student, as a primary borrower, the interest rate is fixed, and that's fixed every July 1st. You're going to have a new interest rate, and that's fixed by the government. So each time you get a student loan, you're going to see a different interest rate there. So pay attention to that. And the government on these federal loans is the lender, okay? And so that's your federal student loan. The main difference between, you see subsidized and unsubsidized is really the interest that's being charged and who's paying that. So when you think about the subsidized student loan, while you're in school and during those times that during in school, as well as any type of grace period, the federal government is actually paying the interest on that student loan for the subsidized student loans. For the unsubsidized loan, the student is responsible for the interest. And one of the questions that we oftentimes get when it comes to subsidized versus unsubsidized is, can I choose which type of loan that I'm awarded? Well, of course, the subsidized loan, the government pays that interest while you're in school or during grace periods. But remember, the financial aid office will award you what you're eligible for. And it's all based on need. So you really can't choose necessarily which one. They will award you what you're eligible for. And then also with our Perkins loan program, that's a loan program that's done through your school. So they manage that loan program, and the interest rate on that is fixed as well. Okay, so just remember that. And like I said, that's administered by the school, and the student is a primary borrower. With the Federal Direct Plus loan or parent loan, that's also a federal loan program, as well as our Grad Plus. And the Grad Plus is for graduate students. So those are two other types of loans. Those loans are also funded by the federal government. With the parent loan, the borrower is the parent. And with the Grad Plus loan, the borrower is the student, the graduate student. And the government is the lender on that one. On our private student loan, that is the private lender is the actual lender. You, the student, would be the borrower, or in some cases, when you think about private student loans, the parent can also be the borrower. So it just depends on how that loan is set up. You can contact your financial institution if you have any additional questions. And that loan also can be fixed or variable. So it's very important for you to pay attention to the type of loans that you might have. And I will tell you, most students have that federal subsidized or unsubsidized, and that's the type of loan that I have. So next slide. And when you think about, student loan repayment and when that begins, it can begin at different times, but really prior to entering your student loan repayment, most of your loans will have some type of grace period, okay? And you got to remember, a grace period really is defined as that set period of time after you graduate, after you leave school, or if you drop below that half-time enrollment before your repayment actually begins. And so, when I talked about in the previous slide about setting up a budget and making sure you have things in place before you go into repayment, the nice thing is when you have that grace period, that's when you can look at those things, right? Because once you graduate from school, you're going to have, if you have that federal direct private loan, you're going to have a 6-month grace period. So you have time to take care of things, to get things in place before you go into repayment. And then on your federal Perkins loan, the loan that's administered by the school, you have a 9-month grace period. So you have even longer to set yourself up for financial success. And then when it comes to the parent loan is a little bit different. Once that loan is fully dispersed, then that parent will go into repayment. You can get additional information from your loan servicer. And with the Grad Plus loan, that's the graduate's loan, that student will go into repayment 6 months after they graduate or they're no longer in school. And so it's key to take advantage of your grace period, get yourself set up and make sure that you're ready financially to start paying that student loan. Next slide. And so when you think about student loans, one of the things that I oftentimes get questions about is really, what is my responsibility? Do I really have to pay that loan back? And the answer is yes. Your first responsibility really is paying back that student loan as agreed, right? You borrowed it, and so now it's time to pay it back. So you do have to do that. And you also want to make sure that you're opening up all of your mail, your email from your servicer. We'll talk about that in a second. But you want to make sure that you're staying on top of everything that's being sent to you, because it is your responsibility to make sure that you pay that loan on time, okay? So knowing when your repayment will begin, that's on you to know that. It's your responsibility. And you also want to make sure that you know and you're updating your servicer or your loan provider on information about yourself. So that demographic information. that needs to be updated by you. And so you want to make sure that you're keeping your lender and your servicer up to date with all the information that they need to know, because when you go into repayment, it really is, it's up to you to make sure that you're on time with that first payment, regardless of if you received any type of information. But I will tell you, you should receive information from your loan servicer, letting you know about all the information that you need to know in order to be successful and to repay your loans. So now that you know about your responsibilities, we're going to talk about, on the next slide, talk about why credit really does matter. And when you think about student loans and credit and debt and all of those things, when it comes to managing your credit, taking control of your student debt is really, really important, because you want to make sure that you really understand the type of debt that you have, and you want to make sure that you're paying on time every time, and you're paying it off as fast as you can, as quickly as you can, so that you can just be done with it and free up more of your money. But when you think about credit, it's important because you want to make sure that if you take care of your credit, it's going to open up more doors of opportunity, right? So that you're able to, you're financially, you become more flexible in what you're able to do. And so having good credit really does help free up some of your finances, in the sense that you have credit and you're able to use that to open up more doors of opportunity. And so that's why it's so valuable. The other thing that we really encourage you to do is check your credit report. You know, a lot of times you might find errors on your credit report. And also that's where you're going to find your student loan information, right? And so you take a look at your credit report, see what's out there, see what type of information is on your credit report. What are people saying about you, right? And so you want to make sure that you're consistently checking your credit report. And then you also want to make sure that, you know, one of the questions that we oftentimes get is, you know, what are some of the different types of software that I can use to better handle my finances? And I will say, make sure that you check out whatever type of software your financial institution that you actually use. What do they have? Because a lot of times they will have great information, great tools and resources for you to use where you can take advantage of that. So we really encourage you to do that. And then finally, we want to make sure, you know, when you think about your credit, you know, you want to make sure that with your student loan and any of your expenses, you're paying on time every single time. Because when you think about your credit and your credit score, the component of your credit history, like how often you're paying on time every single time, that is a largest component of your credit score, which is 35%. That's really why it's so important to pay on time every single time. Take advantage of making it automatic by setting it up so that those payments are coming out of your check every single month, and it's automatic and you're paying on time. That way you're never late, right? And so it's important to do that. And that's a great tip for you to make sure that you take advantage of that. Now let's talk about your loan servicer on the next slide. And so when you think about it, a loan servicer, you know, you remember a lot of the times when you borrow from the federal government, that's the lender. But the company that actually works on behalf of the lender is called a loan servicer. And that's who the majority of you all will be communicating with, will be working with, is your loan servicer. And they work on behalf of the lender. So here we talk about some of the things that the loan servicer does. So for example, they collect the payments. So that's who you'll be making the payment to each month, is that loan servicer. They assist in different types of customer service. So all of the questions that you have, your loan servicer is going to be able to answer those questions. In addition to that, they're going to help you set up any type of payment option that you choose. Casey's going to talk about the different plans that they have. And it's important to make sure that you stay in contact with your servicer, because unlike other type of debt, I'm telling you, your servicer is there to really help you. And they're also there to grant postponements or deferments and things like that, that will put you in a better place and help you better manage your payments. And so your loan servicer is your friend, and you want to make sure that you stay in contact with them And any questions that you have, please connect with your loan servicer. And also, you want to make sure that you go to the loan servicer site, and it's studentaid.ed.gov. And so you want to make sure that you find out, the loan servicer will have a lot of information for you, but if you go to their website, you'll find additional information. So let's go on to the next slide where we'll talk a little bit more about how to find that. And so you can see here your loan servicer, this is the website that I mentioned, studentaid.ed.gov. And this is where you're able to find out additional information. It's a great site because you're able to find out who your lender is, how much you borrowed, what interest rate your loan came under. Remember, every July 1st, I told you your interest rate would change. That shows you all of that. It gives you a snapshot of all of your student loans and even some of your grants that you've received throughout college. So this is a great site. You can take a look at this site now, again, at studentaid.ed.gov, and you'll find out lots of information about yourself as it relates to the type of funding that you received while you're in school. And then finally, in order to get information on your private student loan, just check annualcreditreport.com. That's the credit site, and that's where your information on your private student loans is stored at annualcreditreport.com when you check your credit report. Now, you can also check with the private student loan lender that you borrowed from, but to get everything in one place, you can certainly go to annualcreditreport.com. And so I'm going to turn it over to Casey, who's going to talk to you more about student loan repayment and postponement. Casey?
Thanks, Sylvia. So yes, next what we're going to be doing is we're going to be discussing loan repayment and postponement. So let's go ahead and get started on the next slide. Now, Sylvia's mentioned a couple of times, before repayment begins, you definitely want to really work on putting together a plan to pay back your student loans. And I know Sylvia talked about that earlier on in our presentation. So we put together some additional steps as you prepare to enter repayment after graduation. So first off, what you want to consider doing is really signing up and taking advantage of the online features that your loan servicer provides. And this can really help you to actually manage your student loan payments. I know Sylvia was mentioning just a minute ago about the, looking up your federal student loans and seeing that information. So when you look on the federal student aid site and you're looking up the federal loan information, it's going to show you, how much you've actually borrowed, what year you borrowed it. When you sign up for those online portals or those features that your loan servicer provides, it's going to give you more of that real time, like how much that payment's going to be, how much is going to interest. So definitely you may want to consider signing up for that. Also, research and connect with your loan servicer to find out what repayment plan options are available that you can actually take advantage of. And we'll be talking about that more here in the coming slides. And then make sure to know when your repayment begins. If you haven't received any information about when repayment begins, reach out to your loan servicer. I know Sylvia early on in the presentation, again, when she was going through those responsibilities, she mentioned repaying the loan even if you don't get your loan bill. So make sure that when you have to begin repaying your student loans. And if you haven't received any information, definitely reach out to your loan servicer to find that out specifically. Also, contact your loan servicer to explore ways to pay off your loans quicker, such as taking advantage of interest rate discounts. One thing that we will share is, interest rate discounts isn't something that's going to be automatically done by your loan servicer. So you're going to need to be proactive and actually reach out to them to see if there are ways and things that you can take advantage of, such as interest rate discounts. In addition, if you ever have any difficulty when it comes to making your student loan payments, because things can come up, life happens, what you want to do is you definitely want to reach out to your loan servicer to really explore what type of options you have available. And then, of course, be sure to leverage the tools that are available. There's a lot of great tools on the federal student aid site, and you can see some of those tools that we have listed here on the slide. So the loan simulator, The loan simulator, what it does is it helps you to calculate student loan payments and kind of choose that loan repayment option that really helps meet your needs and your goals. And I know we got some questions that came in, pre-submitted questions around public service loan forgiveness, or PSLF. There is a great public service loan forgiveness tool that you can find on the federal student aid site. And really what the PSLF help tool does is it can help you to determine whether you work for a qualifying employer for PSLF. So on the next slide, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the federal loan repayment plan options. So on the next few slides, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some high-level overview information on the federal student loan repayment plan options that are available. Now, it's going to be really important to remember that although when you start making payments, you may select or possibly even be assigned a particular repayment plan when you first enter repayment on your federal loans. But do know that you can actually change that repayment plan at any time. And to do that, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to reach out to your loan servicer and get some of those additional details and information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start on the left-hand side of the screen, and then we're going to start first with the standard repayment plan. So with the standard repayment plan, payments are actually going to be fixed for a 10-year repayment period. Now, overall, this plan would save you money over time because the monthly payments might be slightly higher than payments under other repayment plans, but you'll be paying off the loan in the shortest period of time. And really, because of that, you'll be paying the least amount of interest over the life of that loan. Now, next, the one in the middle is going to be the graduated repayment plan. Now, under this repayment plan, you will start out with smaller payments, and then they're going to increase every 2 years. Now, similar to the standard repayment plan, you'll be given a 10-year period to actually pay off the loan. Now, the last plan that you see here on the screen, the last plan is going to be called the extended repayment plan. Now, under this plan, you would actually have up to 25 years to pay off the loan, which of course means that you would pay more interest over the long term. Now, you can select, if you were to use extended repayment plan, you can select to have those payments set up under a standard or graduated type of plan under this larger extended repayment plan umbrella. Now, with the extended repayment plan, one of the things we want to share is that you will also need to have more than $30,000 in outstanding federal debt in order to qualify for extended repayment plan program. Now, finally, if you happen to have had a Perkins loan at any point that you were in school, what you want to do is contact your loan servicer for information regarding what those repayment plan options would be. So now what I want to do on the next slide is talk about income-based repayment options. Now, most federal student loans will offer income-based repayment plan options. And these options are going to include income-sensitive and income-driven repayment plans. So what we're going to focus on for our time is we're going to talk about the income-driven repayment plans. Now, those plans under that larger income-driven repayment plan umbrella are going to include the Income Contingent Repayment Plan, or ICR, Income-Based Repayment Plan, or IBR, Pay-as-you-earn Repayment Plan, or PAY, and Revised Pay-as-you-earn Repayment Plan, or REPAY. Now, your loan servicer is actually going to be the one to determine whether or not you qualify for the income-based repayment plans. Now, some of the things that they will consider when they're determining eligibility can include things such as what's your annual income, what's the family size, and what types of federal loans that you're actually looking at, including in this income-based repayment plan. Now, what you want to do if this is something that you would like to explore is definitely contact your loan servicer For some additional information regarding, what those monthly payment amounts are, the length of time that you have to repay off the loans under that sort of an income-driven plan, and what are your loan forgiveness options, and how, most importantly, would you qualify for this plan every year? Because one thing we will share is, in order to qualify for an income-driven plan, that is something your loan servicer is going to look at in a yearly basis. So again, things that they consider are going to be annual income, what's the family size, and what types of federal loans you have. Now, again, I know some of you expressed interest in learning a little bit more about public service loan forgiveness. So if you are interested in that, what you definitely want to do is contact your servicer and get some more information regarding, how does that work? You can definitely leverage what we talked about previously, which was the public service loan forgiveness help tool. But you'll definitely want to reach out to them to get that specific information regarding, how would you qualify? What do you need to do to maintain that qualification? So definitely reach out to them and get that additional information. So what we want to cover in the final program that we're going to talk about on the next slide is going to be the private student loan program. So now, private student loan repayment options, this is something that's actually going to vary depending on the lender that you used for your private student loans if you had to take out private student loans. Now, a couple of things to note with private student loans: your loan repayment term is something, again, that may vary depending on the lender that you used for your private student loan and the program of study that you did while you were in college. Now, the payment is actually going to go directly to that student loan provider or loan servicer for that private student loan. And if you have additional questions and to set up, your repayment plan, what you're going to want to do is reach out to that loan servicer or the loan provider on that private student loan. So now what I want to go ahead and do on the next slide is spend a little bit of time talking about student loan postponement options. So we'll begin first with talking about deferment. And deferment is really going to be a period of time in which repayment of the principal and the interest on your loan is temporarily postponed. Now, however, one of the things is you will remain responsible for interest that accrues on the unsubsidized loans, if you had the unsubsidized loans, and interest also accrues on the PLUS loans that parents take out, and on the graduate professional students, so the Grad Plus loan. If you take that out as a graduate student, the interest will accrue as well. Now, one thing that we want to share and make note of is that any accrued interest that is, accruing at this time will be capitalized after that approved deferment period is over. So that's one of the things we do want to make mention as well. Now, the next option that you see on the screen is going to be a forbearance. And this is going to sound very similar to the deferment, because the forbearance is actually also going to be a period of time where you might be able to stop making payments or actually reduce your monthly payment for a limited time. Now, with a forbearance, approved forbearances, the interest is actually going to accrue on those federal loans. So any interest that accrues, whether that is subsidized or unsubsidized, will be capitalized after that approved forbearance period. So that's going to be, again, the biggest difference that you see, one of those big differences between the two. So if you remember earlier, I mentioned interest accrues on the unsubsidized, the PLUS loan for parents, and the Grad Plus loan. Under a forbearance, it will accrue on all federal loans. So that would also include any subsidized loans that you might have. Now, if you need to explore a deferment or a forbearance option, what you want to do is contact your loan servicer for more information and to figure out how you would qualify for one of those options. So they'll definitely be able to walk you through that and how you would qualify. Now, one of the things, it's important to note that you want to continue to make your student loan payments until you've received verification from your loan servicer that you've been placed in approved deferment or forbearance status. Because remember, earlier Sylvia talked about credit and how your student loans are going to be something that's reported on your credit report. So you want to make sure, touch base with that loan servicer, because once you complete the paperwork, if they haven't processed it, you should continue to make those student loan payments until you can actually verify that yes, indeed, your loan has been placed in an approved deferment or forbearance status. Now, if you have private loans, definitely check with your lender or your loan servicer to find out what sort of deferment or forbearance options that you might actually have available. So next, on the next slide, what I want to go ahead and do is actually talk about student loan consolidation and refinancing a little bit more. So let's go ahead and go into the next slide and talk about that in more detail. Now, when you're considering consolidation, you really want to consider some of the following questions. And these are some of the things that you can ask yourself, things to consider when you are doing your research. So really think about, why are you considering consolidation or refinancing your student loans? What types of loans are you thinking of refinancing or consolidating? And when should you consider refinancing or consolidating your student loans? And then also, how does it change the terms of your loans? And what will the interest rate be if you refinance or consolidate your student loans? So there's actually going to be two types of refinance or consolidation programs for student loans. And we're going to go ahead and look at that a little bit more on the next slide. So let's go ahead and start with talking about the Federal Direct Consolidation Loan Program. This loan is actually offered through the federal government, and it allows you to consolidate federal student loans only. Now, some of the reasons a borrower might consider consolidating their federal student loans could be things such as reducing multiple payments, lowering the monthly payment, or it could even be extending the length of time to repay the loan. Now, when you are considering consolidation, you definitely want to make sure to do some additional research. Borrowers may lose some of the benefits associated with the original loan terms. Now, if you are interested in exploring additional information about the Federal Direct Consolidation Program, definitely visit the Federal Student Aid site at studentaid.gov. Now, private consolidation, private student loan consolidation is actually going to be offered through private lending institutions, and it will actually allow borrowers to either refinance or consolidate federal and or private student loans into a new loan. Now, sometimes reasons that borrowers may consider consolidating or refinancing their student loans into a private student loan could include things such as simplicity. So combining multiple payments into one payment, potentially lowering the monthly payment amount, or maybe even extending the length of the repayment period. But remember, you may pay more interest over time with that type of an option of extending the length of the repayment period. Now, some additional points to remember, and this was something I mentioned just a second ago, is when you consolidate, you may lose certain borrower benefits. And consolidation and refinance loan benefits can actually vary by lender. So this is why we say it is so important to really do your research, to ask questions of the loan servicer. Ask how it may change some of those borrower benefits if you were to do a refinance or consolidation loan. So again, just things to keep in mind if that is something that you are exploring. So next, what we want to go ahead and do as we get ready to wrap up. So we're going to go on the next slide, and we're going to be wrapping up, and we wanted to leave you with some great resources that you can take away as a reference after our session today. So on the next slide, we're going to go ahead and highlight some of those. Now, there are a lot of resources that can actually assist you in answering questions when it comes to repaying your student loans. So you can actually visit the studentaid.gov site for more information about federal student loans, about repayment options, basically everything that Sylvia and I covered today. So there'll be information about the different types of student loans. You'll find information about the different types of repayment plans. You'll learn about the tools that are available that can help you when it comes to managing your federal loans. You'll find information about consolidation out there as well. So that's really going to be a one site that you can gather a lot of the information that Sylvia and I discussed with you today. To find out information about private student loans, check with your loan servicer. You can also visit annualcreditreport.com. The next one, the Federal Student Aid Ombudsman Group can actually help resolve disputes that if you had any with regards to federal student aid, they can help you with that. You can actually find out more information if you did need to leverage the Federal Student Aid Ombudsman Group at studentaid.gov. Now, you can also receive information on financial resources for all stages of college by visiting wellsfargo.com/college resources. Input your information and we'll send you resources on the topics that interest you most. And then also visit our webinars on YouTube by scanning the QR code that you see here in the screen. The webinar series is really designed to help you, plan, prepare, pay for college, and just really get some additional information. And then, finally, always remember, one of the key things is to stay in touch with your student loan servicer or loan provider. So as we move on, I want to go ahead and hand it off to my friend there, Dewey Norwood. Dewey.
All right, Casey, Sylvia, a ton of information there. Thank you for everything that you walked through. Scholars, I know a lot of times it's a natural question that comes in relative to playback. Yes, you'll have access to the playback here and can go back and review those slides accordingly. So, hey, we're going to pivot to the next phase of things, and we're going to bring on Yakima Anderson, again, another trusted partner of ours with TMCF, who's going to facilitate our Q&A with things. And Casey, Sylvia, before we give it to Yakima around things, I want you to touch on this for me. This is one just came up to top of mind here for me today. How do students make sure that they are connecting in with credible resources to help them address their student loan debt? You see these commercials or you see things that pop up or ads that may come up online. How do you make sure that you're working with kind of reputable organizations when you're looking at student debt versus, something again that pops up on your phone that you say, oh, you're going to pay all your debt. Really? Are you really going to pay my debt? Can you guys just touch on that? What's credible? What should students steer away from? And then we're bringing Yakima on right after that.
Did you want me to start off, Sylvia?
They're both smiling about this.
No, and it's interesting, Dewey, because when I think back to, and like Sylvia, my prior life, I did work in a financial aid office as well. So it really helped to have had that experience, because I will admit, when I was in repayment on my loans, I was getting solicitation from companies I've never heard of. And it can be overwhelming, right? Especially with a borrower who is maybe right out of school into repayment, not quite sure, is this, to your point, is this a reputable company? Is it not? For me, I always went back to the loan servicer and, looking at that information, going back to the federal student aid site, especially with the federal student loans, they will post important updates with regards to student loans. Like, for example, the pause on making student loan payments, that is a banner that is front and center on the federal student aid site. So the federal student aid site is really going to be a trusted source for students, because it will have all the information pertaining to federal student loans. And then I would say that communication with the loan servicers is going to be important. And then just doing the research and asking the questions as well. What would you add, Sylvia?
I mean, I think you really covered it. Is really connecting with your loan servicer and studentaid.gov. That's where you really want to focus on. I will say too that, you know, it's funny because my husband, who's been out of school for many years, is getting calls now on student loan repayment, and he doesn't have a loan.
Wow.
So so you're hearing a lot of noise about it. And so you really do want to make sure that you're not clicking on emails that you're not sure where it's originated from.
Yeah.
And just go right to the source. The links that we gave you, that's where you want to be. Your loan servicer that is communicating with you, that's where you want to be. But you know, phone calls and things like that, no, they're not going to be doing that. So you want to make sure that one of the things, I don't know if I mentioned it, is you want to, you know, when you have your loan servicer, put that in your contacts so that, you know,
Nice.
it doesn't go into, you know, your trash file or it's deleted. So make sure you do that, and then, you know, stay in touch. And anytime you get an email that you question, don't just go into it or make a payment, go into your actual account, and that's where you're going to find the accurate information.
Perfect. So
You know, Sylvia, I will
please,
add
keep on,
Dewey,
Casey. Mhm.
another resource that you might be able
Yeah.
is go back to your financial aid office. They will,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
oftentimes have that pulse check on, you know, who's out there as far as lenders, and be able to provide some additional insight to students. So the financial aid office can be another great resource to say, have you ever heard of this company? You know, I'm getting solicitations.
Perfect. So definitely sticking with your servicer, utilizing the resources on studentaid.gov, not .com, not something else, .gov. And then I love the suggestion there about just going back to campus. Yeah, you need to get a t-shirt anyway, right? Go back on campus and pop by the financial aid office and get some support there. So, and I also love the idea around the approved sender, getting folks into the green light list there for your emails. All right, Yakima, we've gotten them started. I know we got a lot more that are coming in. Students, reminder, these are coming in confidentially. Keep them coming. We're going to take as many as we can. Yakima, please take it away.
Absolutely. There's so much great information passed through by
Yes.
Casey and Sylvia. Thank you so much. You know, I just graduated 5 years ago, so where were you? Where were you? But this is great information. So we do have a question that came in that is asking, what plan should I use if I'm going to be working full-time, but still doing my master's degree program part-time?
So, Sylvia and I smile at each other, right?
Interesting one there.
That is a good one. And it's interesting because I actually found myself in that situation as well. It's really going to be, you know, a personal decision as to how you decide you're going to, you know, go to school, work, student loan payments, all of that combined. But there are, for example, in my situation, I was working full-time, decided to go back to graduate school. I did have subsidized loans. So what I did is I reached out to my servicer, and I actually, because they were subsidized, I qualified for an in-school deferment, and I was able to postpone those and, you know, take advantage of that because the government actually paid the interest on my subsidized while I was in grad school. But there was a deferment option that I did leverage when I was in grad school and working, to be able to temporarily pause so it could kind of help from a budget standpoint until I completed my studies. But there are definitely options that can be explored, and that would be a great point to have a conversation with the loan servicer, especially for the student, to let them know this is my situation. You know, what options would I have available?
Wonderful. Wonderful. I think that's something that students don't quite consider, is that while still in school, you can defer as you are receiving those additional degrees. So we have another question that came in that says, is it beneficial to begin paying off loans while actively in school?
Did you? Okay.
That's a great question. So one of the things that I will, well, it's beneficial in the sense that, you know, if you're in school and you have the funding where you can start making payments, that's a good thing, right? Because you're lowering that debt so that when you graduate, you don't have as much. However, what I will say is if you are in school and you're set up on an in-school deferment, you can make payments, but don't put yourself in repayment, okay? So what does that mean? Don't change that status to make yourself in repayment. Keep yourself in an in-school status, right? That way you can make payments or pay towards that loan as you choose. Now, if you have unsubsidized loans, I think it's great for you to make those interest payments while you're in school. Because remember, if you have that unsubsidized loan, the interest is being charged from the time you take the loan out, right? So the interest is accruing. And if you have the ability to make those interest payments, that would be great because, one of the things that we talked about, the words that we used was interest capitalization. So what does that even mean? That means that any interest that accrues, while you're in school, like say on those unsubsidized loans, once you graduate and your grace period is over, that interest capitalizes back into the principal, meaning they take all the interest that has accrued and whatever is there, they put it into the principal and it adds to that. So you have your interest plus your principal combined, and then you're paying interest on that. So that's why it's important, if you can, to pay that interest while you're in school, or pay it even during the grace period so that it doesn't capitalize back into the principal. And hopefully you understood that. So, but that's one of those things that hopefully, Yakima, you took advantage of that.
For sure.
I did.
Good.
And so I just want to remind our participants that in addition to putting your questions in the chat, if you feel comfortable with coming on camera, you can always raise your hand by accessing our reactions feature and ask your question on camera if you are comfortable to do so. So we have some pre-submitted questions, and one of those questions is, how can I pay off loans faster? Should I consolidate all of them into one so that they can pay it all off with one loan, or should they pay off their loans one by one?
So when it comes to how to pay off your loans sooner, so we went through a couple of different types of repayment plan options. Specifically, we highlighted the ones on a high level for federal student loans. So, if you were, like we mentioned when we were talking about standard, it's like a 10-year payout, and then you're making equal payments. So you're paying it off in the shortest period of time, potentially the least interest because you're paying it off so quickly. I think there's a couple of things depending on where the students are, in their financial journey. Things that you consider, Sylvia was talking about, interest capitalization, paying early. Do you know sometimes we get questions from students, can I make payments, before, like send money? If I'm working for a summer job, can I send some money and apply it towards my student loans? You can do that at any point without penalty. So that's one thing you can consider doing. It's, when you start looking at refinancing, consolidation, things of that nature, you just need to really be careful, because I know Dewey had mentioned there's a lot of companies out there. How do you know if they're legitimate companies? I mentioned, when it comes to refinancing and consolidation, students can explore consolidating federal loans only, or they could explore, private consolidation, where they could either consolidate private student loans only, or they could combine federal and private together. And I know there's a lot of companies out there that may say, combine all of your payments into one. Students just really need to do the research, really ask the questions, because the biggest thing with consolidation is you may lose some of those borrower benefits. So for example, if you had a private consolidation, entity that you were considering or exploring, you need to find out if you were to use a private consolidation loan and pay off those federal loans, what sort of repayment plan options would you have available? Would you have the same ones that you originally had on your federal loans? Would you have those original deferment forbearance options that we talked about? those may be things that you lose. So this is where it's going to become really important when it comes to refinance and consolidation, that students really ask those questions, do the research, because you don't want to, not knowing what the future holds. Are you going to go back to school? Do things come up that you need to take advantage of things that you would have had on your loans originally had you not consolidated? So that's why we encourage students or borrowers really do that research. And there are things you can apply extra funds to your loans while you're in school if you choose to without penalty. You can make extra payments when you are in repayment on your student loans. There's a lot of things that you can do to help pay them off quicker. Sylvia, would there be anything that you'd add as well?
The only thing that I would add is that, during times when the government pauses any type of interest that's being charged or says, hey, right now, that in this current situation that we're in, you're not required to make payments. Well, that's a great opportunity if you can, is make extra payments, because the interest isn't being charged. You're not being required to make it. So pay as much as you can on that principal, so that when that goes away, and right now it's still August 31st, because of the pandemic and all that. So everything's on pause, but if you pay as much as you can right now, because once we go back into where, the interest is going to start accruing again, you will have paid that down. So anytime interest is not being charged, when you have any type of federal pause, pay as much as you can. And that's a way that you can pay that off quicker.
Thank you, Sylvia and Casey. I think the key thing that I heard out of that was do your research. You have to know what type of loan you have and know what all exists, what options exist within the loan that you have. So do your research. That is so important. We have a question from a student that is asking, if they are full-time and they do not have a job or an internship, is it possible to graduate college without any debt? And if so, what are some proven ways to do so?
I'll start. That's a great question, because one of the things that you really want to do, if you want to graduate college without any debt, and you're not looking, or you can't work because it's a lot in college, right? Is you want to apply for as many academic scholarships as possible, as many talent-based scholarships as possible if you have talent. So scholarships is going to be the key. In addition to that, even though it may be a form of work, one of the things that I did when I was in school, and I only graduated with one loan, is that I ran for student government. One, they give you a stipend for being in those positions. So that helped, that paid my tuition. Another thing to consider, even though somewhat of work, is being a resident assistant, then your room and board is paid for. And maybe you can figure out the rest on the tuition. But there's some ways to definitely graduate with less debt or no debt at all if you really focus on scholarships and doing some of those things on campus that may be somewhat of a job, but not necessarily, kind of a 9 to 5. So get involved, and then know where your resources are on campus, because I tell you, if the faculty and staff know who you are, know what you're interested in. So I have a daughter that's in school. A scholarship comes up, they're calling her because they know her interest, they know, her work ethic, and so people have to know who you are and know what you're interested in. And when scholarships and opportunities come up, they may look for you. So take advantage of things like that.
Absolutely.
Casey, anything you'd add?
No, I was going to say you hit on everything, Sylvia.
Absolutely. I think that it is important to make career services your best friend. Your name should be at the forefront of their mind whenever opportunities are rolling through that office. And so thank you so much for that valuable information, Sylvia, regarding scholarships. We have a question coming in that is asking, what are key aspects to look out for if considering private loans?
So again, and Yakim, I know you were mentioning, like when we were discussing that last one, research. This is probably going to be, or this will be another thing that you'll need to do. If private loans is something that you're going to need to explore to help cover educational expenses, definitely look to see what are those interest rates. I know Sylvia, when she was talking about the types of loans, she mentioned that private student loans will offer fixed rates, they'll offer variable rates. So it's kind of figuring out, what sort of a risk tolerance. Do you want something that's locked in, that you'll know this interest rate is never going to change? Or are you comfortable with a rate that potentially could change monthly or quarterly? So looking at the interest rates, when do you go into repayment on those private student loans? Do you go into repayment while you're in school, or is there some sort of a minimum payment that's required? Or is there flexibility to postpone after graduation? What sort of repayment plan options, what sort of deferment options? So with a lot of the things that we talked about for federal loans, I think some of the key things oftentimes students will look at will be, what are those interest rates? When do you have to go into repayment on the loan? So doing the research and just kind of figuring out, what the differences are. Are there things that stand out to you when it comes to a private loan? So those were some of the key things I would say they would look out for. Sylvia, is there anything you would add?
No, I think you covered them all. So yes.
So there's a question about transferring of loans. And so is it possible to transfer a loan to get a better or a lower interest rate?
So there's not such a thing as transferring. That's typically where students look at considering consolidation, is because they saw that a different company was offering, a particular interest rate and it's lower than what they currently have. So they, want to try and get that lower rate. As Sylvia mentioned, with federal loans, the interest rate will change automatically every July 1st on federal loans. Private loans, again, you can look at fixed or variable, but to say there is no transfer of a loan, it would be more having to explore a refinance or consolidation route in order to really change that interest rate.
Absolutely. And I'll only add, I actually was renting a car, and the student, they know what I do, and she asked me, because she had a higher interest rate, and she was asking about, what should she do? The same question that you brought up. And so what I told her, look at with the lender that you currently have and see if you can refinance into a lower rate, because she had been out of school for a while and rates had come down. And sure enough, she had been on time every time with all of her payments. She didn't have anything that was late previously, and they refinanced her loan to a lower interest rate. So it is something that can actually happen. And I encourage students to do that if they feel like their interest rate is high based on when they took that out. So definitely something to consider. So not transferring, but just refinancing into a lower rate.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. And so let me just ask, now my personal wheels are spinning, just so for the students on the call who have credit cards, is the same true that they can contact the lender and request a lower interest rate if they've been with that lender for a while?
Yes, that's a great question, and something that they should absolutely do. So what I would say, when I'm talking to students about credit, after they've had that credit card for a while, they've done well with the credit card. One indication that you've done well with the credit card is a lot of times the company will say, hey, we've increased your credit limit, meaning the amount that they will allow you to use on that credit card, right? So when you get that news, then you're doing well, and you're managing it the way that it needs to be managed. And if that's happening, just contact them and say, hey, my interest rate is X. Is there any way I can get a lower interest rate? So you want to definitely do that. Do that throughout. And as long as you're doing your part, managing the credit card well, you're not, going right at the edge on what they're allowing you to use that credit limit, then I think definitely something you should consider and always ask.
Wonderful.
Anything you'd add, Casey?
No, I think you hit all of it, Sylvia.
Okay.
You ladies are the dream team. Thank you so much. We still have some great questions that were pre-submitted. And one of them is, what are some ways to establish a good credit score?
I think some of the key things, when Sylvia talked about the biggest part of the credit score at 35% is going to be your payment history. So when you think about it, all of us can control when we submit those payments. So, submitting your payments on time, every time is something that's really important. And, ways that, or things to consider to help with that aspect is, maybe setting up your payments and automatic bill pay or ACH from your account. This way you're assured that your payment will be received by, for example, your student loan provider on time, every time. And I think, that's such a big part of your credit score that's something you can definitely, all of us can impact is, making those payments on time, every time. I think is always one of the key things I think about as well.
And one of my key things that I really like is to, when you think about, remember I talked about the credit limit. So what is your credit limit? And if you know what your credit limit is, what you want to do is keep your utilization rate at 30% or lower, and that will help you keep your credit score on the higher end. And so what does that mean? You take that 30% times whatever rate they say the amount that they allow you to use on your credit card, and keep it 30% or below. So keep your utilization rate at 30% or below on your credit cards.
And actually,
Okay.
these two factors, Yakima, are 65% of the credit score. So how much you owe and your payment history make up 65% of that score.
And those sound like two very doable things.
Absolutely.
Payment
Absolutely.
history, just pay on time.
Yes.
And keep it below 30% usage, right? Utilization of your total budget or balance, right? So that means you can't max it out, is what you're telling me, Sylvia. I can't.
That's right. Yeah.
I can't
Keep
max
it
it
below
out.
30%, or, and when you make that payment, make sure the payment's taken below 30%. Now, I recommend paying in full every time, but keep it below 30% for sure to keep your credit score at the maximum. Okay. Or keep it high. So yes.
Awesome.
Right. Yakima, keep an eye on the clock here. We're coming quickly to our exit ramp around things. So maybe one or two more. And then Yakima, let's also get a closing thought from Sylvia and Casey. And we'll let folks get on to the rest of their afternoon and evening after that. But the Q&A has been great. Great.
Sure thing. We can end on this one, and I think it's a great one. After graduation, how should I prioritize lowering student debt versus savings versus retirement versus house and investment? That's a loaded one, ladies.
I'll start and I'll let you kind of wrap that one up, Casey. But honestly, for me, and I remember those days of just everything coming at you at once, and what you really have to sit down. And my number one thing is you have to create a budget. That's what I told my daughter to do, because it just too much comes at you at once. But once you create a budget, you know what's going in, what's going out, then you'll know where you can save more, where you can pay more, where you need to make some adjustments. So you really do have to understand where your money is coming from, where it's going, because if you don't tell your money where to go, it's going to leave. So I'll turn it over to Casey to see what her thoughts are.
I have to say, just from past experience, because I will say I was not the best with managing money when I was in school, because I felt like I really didn't have a lot, right? I would spend it and didn't have much left. So when I graduated and having a student loan payment, having to pay my own insurance, rent, things like that, it was pretty eye-opening. So it became really important quickly and early on that I needed to set that budget. I really, as Sylvia said, needed to understand what money was coming in, where was I spending money, and it was really easy, having graduated and working, to go out to eat lunch with friends. but that adds up really quickly, right? Coworkers. And so it became like, ooh, I was spending a lot in certain areas. It didn't give me the opportunity, Akima, like you were saying, balancing all those different aspects. So how can I contribute to retirement and put money into savings and make all of my monthly obligations? So a budget is going to be key to really understand, like Sylvia said, what money is coming in, where am I spending the money? Do I need to make changes in order to do and hit these priorities from a financial perspective?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Casey and Sylvia, for being with us today and presenting on such a critical topic. And so I am going to turn it back over to Dewey.
Akima, thank you. Thank you so much for your masterful facilitation there of the Q&A. And Sylvia, Casey, just every single time you all knock it out of the park. Every single time you give good information and things that folks can kind of act on. What I'll ask for is that after the broadcast, is it okay if folks connect with you all via LinkedIn, or if they need to grab another 15 minutes or so with you, is that okay?
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Perfect. You go double your honorarium for those individual sessions. All right. You know, they make the big bucks, y'all. Casey and Sylvia, trust me, they make the big bucks. All right, so they're not gonna comment on it, but I can see it. All right, with that said, team, we're gonna close out maybe just a couple of minutes early today with some additional reminders for you. And you'll see on the next slide some really important information around our survey. Please take a moment, scan the QR code that's there on the screen. It's going to take you over to a very brief survey, but a very important survey. We're always looking for ways to, what I will say is, improve our processes around things. And so if you can, please go ahead, scan the QR code there, jump out there, give us some feedback on kind of the information that we shared today, and then help us continue to refine our processes in the days ahead. So pretty important option there on the quick survey here for today. Hey, as we move on, I think we've got some additional reminders around the remainder of the webinar series. We got 6 in the can. I was talking with the team earlier. We've gotten 6 now completed as of the completion of today's session, and we're going to be right back at it for additional content here coming up very soon. Again, same rules here, team. You can scan the QR code that's on this page. It'll actually take you over to the website where you can register for our additional webinars. So you'll see everything that we've covered off on here for the first portion of the year. And as we continue on with things, you'll see on the next slide, everything that's coming up. So our June session is going to be focused on salary versus value. Excited to have Wendy, and also having Valerie Royal, not saying Veronica, but Valerie, connecting into that session as well for us to discuss how do you compare different job offers that are out there, and how do you make a decision on the one that's best for you. So important content there, very interactive session. So come prepared to take lots of great notes. Biggest webinar of the year, team, will be on July the 28th with a focus on Wells Fargo careers and internships. So during this session, traditionally, we bring on a group of analysts and associates, and they talk about their experiences, and boom, they give you step-by-step guidance on things you need to be thinking about as you're starting to apply for internships. What I will note, the internship discussion that they're going to be having there will be preparing for 2023 internships or full-time roles from there. So come join us again on July the 28th. August 25, great discussion around building your leadership brand, always one of our great subject matters for the year. Trying a path to graduate school. This is going to be another one of those panel discussions. We'll bring on a number of individuals, not just from our firm, but from outside, that have kind of been there and done that, right? They've gone through the graduate school process, they've been successful, and they want to share best practices with each of you all. So come join us there, September 22 for that one. October the 20th, we're going to unbox credit. And hey, credit came up several times today during the discussion with things. So come join us for a great session on October the 20th, once we're back on campus, for Credit Matters That Matter. And then we'll wind up the year with a great topic of social media smarts for today's digital world. Always a fun topic, always a good one for us to be able to end on, and lots of great information that our internal and external partners will be sharing relative to staying safe on the work that you're doing in and around the World Wide Web and social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so that's where we're headed. And again, don't forget, you can jump on TMCF's YouTube channel and you can access and more importantly, share these details and playback links with anyone that may benefit from them. All right, I think we're down to maybe the second to the last slide here. We've got 2 more to go. Our Money Matters. Don't forget to get connected in on the Our Money Matters platform. Huge shout out to our buddy Bonnie Wallace and Teresa Tyson and Monica Mitchell and the entire team for the great work that they're doing around OMM. Jump onto their website, ourmoneymatters.com. You can learn lots of great information there and also get some good resources as you're preparing for career pathways. Hey, as we continue, we'll jump over and give you some final reminders here. Hey, go ahead and get connected in with our university programs team, the talent community. You can follow those links here or just do a quick Google search and it'll take you right to the page and you can get connected in those kinds of areas. Certainly to any of our military veterans that are listening to the playback or joining, thank you so much, A, for your service, the protection of our nation and our liberties. And go ahead, if you're thinking about career opportunities, connect in with the team, Sean Passmore and team, for the work that they're doing around our military recruitment. That email address goes straight to that team, and they've got some additional programming that's coming up very, very soon. So you want to get connected in there. Tuition funding sources, huge shout out to Richard and his team. Thanks for all the great work that you all are doing. They are the ones that help us with our distribution for our emails that go out relative to the Beyond College webinar series, and also just a great aggregator to give you more resources to help you along your college journey. And again, graduate as close to debt-free as we can with things. And then, as we've mentioned before, the Beyond College webinar series that is at your disposal and something great for you to share with others. All right, team, as we wind it up, I want to give some quick thank yous here on the last slide. Just a reminder, join us again on June the 16th for our discussion on salary versus value, determining which role is perfect or is right for you. Got to give a huge shout out to Yakima. Got to give a huge shout out to Jeremy, who's in the background working there, and of course Jackie for their amazing, amazing work. Let me make sure I'm not missing anybody. Last time I missed somebody, am I supposed to be shouting anybody else out from the TMCF side? Yakima, did I miss somebody? I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. All right.
Noel.
Oh, where's Noel? How can I forget about Noel? Noel. See, I'm in a singing mood today. I'm not sure why. But Noel, thank you so much. You're running the slides for us and keeping us on our toes with things. So that's the amazing TMCF team. And from the Wells Fargo side of the house, again, Casey, Sylvia, thank you all so much for your great partnership. We have a lot of partners behind the scenes that help us out with these presentations. I'm thinking about Craig Moore and Fadi and other partners, Barbara Scotland and others that help us out in so many ways with this great content. But we would not be here, literally, because I wouldn't have had the link to get on without Angel Heyman. I will not make her come on camera as much as I want to. She's going to be mad at me after the show. But Angel Heyman is our wonderful meeting and events partner who is doing amazing work relative to this series. So Angel, we got to shout you out in a big, big way. You're getting love in the chat even from folks to telling you to come on camera. I'm just kidding. But you can come on if you want. And then also want to give you all a heads up. You're actually going to have a new partner that you're going to start seeing and engaging with through this year's series, and also certainly as we get into the series in 2023. And it is our expectation that it'll come back next year. Go ahead and look up a brand new partner on our external engagement team in Shantae Joseph. You get an opportunity to hear from Shantae maybe as early as next month's presentation to learn more about the work that she's going to be leading within the institution, and certainly staying connected into the series in the days ahead. So, hey, listen, that's a long laundry list of items. Again, don't forget to join us on June the 16th. Thanks as always to folks that have dialed in and hung in here with us. If you have questions again around any of the content that we've shared, don't hesitate to contact us. Have an amazing summer. Let's handle the things that we need to handle for our internships and for career opportunities. And as always, the Wells Fargo team is here and happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Everyone have a great night. Go enjoy some NBA hoops. And by the way, NBA, huge sponsor, one of the founding partners, right, with TMCF, if I'm not mistaken. So enjoy your summer, team. We're here to help you. Stay safe out there. Until next time, good night, everybody.